Hey everyone, this is Nic LaRue from FilmSnobbery. I'm here at Panic Fest over in Kansas City, and I'm actually sitting down in this fun little basement bar they've got here called Rewind Video, and I'm doing some interviews with filmmakers today. And who is the filmmaker I'm sitting with right now?
I'm Aaron Hall. I'm a writer and director from Toronto, Canada.
Toronto, Canada. What movie are you here with, sir?
Subject 7. It's a short film about a Cold War interrogation where our main character has claims to have supernatural remote viewing capabilities, and the CIA examiner is naturally skeptical of that and wonders if that's for real or if he's a Soviet spy.
All right, so what kind of information is Canada working with here to do something so closely related to what the United States is kind of most known for from back in the day?
I mean, it's funny because I just think that there's such a Canadian culture is so influenced by American culture, but I mean, this came from just being fascinated by all the kind of Looney Tunes zany stuff that the CIA did with like MK Ultra, specifically Project Stargate, which was their like telepathic investigation unit or whatever you want to call it that they messed around with. But yeah, it was just a deep dive of finding crazy experiments and documents that they did in the 1960s that I just find so fascinating.
Was there any pressure when getting the movie set up to feel like, okay, we wanted to do something that is at least remotely accurate, whether it was in the props and stuff like that? There's kind of like a lie detector kind of situation going on in there. There's the tone kind of thing, the music, not music really, but I guess the tone, the sound kind of stuff that was coming through the radio speaker that was meant to either disrupt or activate the agent, so to speak. Is any of that stuff that you kind of researched ahead of time, where it's just like, what would be cool? Let's just do this shit.
I don't know specifically about those audio tones. That was something that I, kind of just kind of made sense to me, sort of like a Manchurian Candidate kind of style trigger kind of thing. But they did mess around with having those sort of mental triggers, pictures and words and code words that they could say to try to influence people's behavior and, see if they could make them do things. But yeah, it's truly... I mean, basically all it took was someone thinking that the Russians were doing something this crazy, and then immediately they were like, well, we're going to give funding to, we have to do it then, right? So it just became this arms race of insane, I don't even know, possibilities. Just like, what if this is real? I don't know. We have to fund it. We have to investigate it. And some of this, like the Project Stargate, which is the remote viewing stuff, that went on until 1994, because I think it was just such a small project that it got forgotten about, and it was funded for decades, even though there was zero evidence that it worked whatsoever. Yeah,
I mean, it reminded me a little bit of like, the Men Who Stare at Goats kind of stuff.
Exactly. Was that 15, 20 years ago, something like that? They made a film that was sort of based on the same, based on the real, it started based on reality. And then, of course, you take license with it and do what you want with it. But, I mean, all the sort of locations and times mentioned in my film are real. They're accurate. And they did have sort of testing sessions that would go on, and they would sort of see if they were accurate, Is
this your first time at Panic Fest?
Yes, it is. It's first time here. I've been here for a couple days. It's been great. I didn't know anything about Panic Fest. I didn't know anything really about genre filmmaking or film fests like this before. But yeah, it's been great.
What kind of prompted you to, and I will say as someone who was also in the audience with you when, watching your film, very well attended, and I can say that across the board. I was really, it's always great when you go to a festival and there's actually people there that are not just the people who work there. So that's fantastic. What was one of the things that prompted you to submit for this festival in the first place?
I saw reviews online, and I saw that there was a lot of, it seemed like, industry support beyond just a single film screening. So they have connections with like horror magazines and outlets such as yourself, and sponsors. There's a bigger reach. There's some, I don't really know what's going to happen from here on out, but it seems like there's a possibility of a further reach than just that one time in the room with people, which was great, but you always want to see if there's a bigger life to something.
And dumb question because I just don't know it, but was this your premiere?
No, it was. We played at a couple other fests that we weren't able to attend. This is the first time I saw it with an audience, and it was great. I think it was sort of an ideal first time for me. Put it that way.
I know we talked a little bit about making movies earlier, making movies in Canada specifically, because everyone kind of has this impression that, the Canadian film industry is most people talk about Vancouver, obviously, because we see it all, all that production on television, and then we talk, a lot of people are like, well, yeah, but they get all the government money and this and that and the other thing. Like, from your perspective, what, was that kind of true? Did you felt supported by the government or the country or the film, let's say, commissions or whatever they have there, or was this more of like, we really weren't. We really didn't qualify for the things that they were offering, so we kind of had to do it more ourselves.
This was entirely out of my own pocket. I didn't bother looking into grants or funding. This was something that, like, from conception to shooting took a couple of weeks, just because of the circumstances that I was in at the time. But in the past, there have been really great funding for shorts in Canada that have since gone away. There used to be something called Bravo Fact. It was sort of a jumping off point for a lot of young filmmakers that sadly doesn't exist anymore. There's a lot of things shot in Vancouver and Toronto. I've described it as sort of like a service industry for above-the-line American money. You mentioned Vancouver. There's currently a movie playing in front of us that was actually shot in Toronto, at least partially. Dracula 2000, which is not a thing I thought I would see this weekend, but it's... There is money in Canada for filmmaking. I really wish a lot of it went to Canadians, a lot more of it. There is some, I don't want to sound cynical. I mean, the real story with this one is that it was so quick and cheap that it was something I just funded myself and didn't even bother looking into proper funding.
Was it designed kind of from the get-go? Because it's for those who haven't seen this, which is going to be the entire audience who is listening to this because they're not here, ostensibly. Did you kind of design it from the start of, like, it's going to be a one location, one room kind of situation, and was that to kind of keep costs down and be like, okay, this is what we have at our disposal, this is what we can do?
Yeah, 100%. It was shot in a studio space that I was renting at the time, and that I was going to lose in a couple of weeks. I was getting kicked out of it, and it started as a music video for somebody I had worked with before. And that project kind of fell apart, but I was still sort of stuck on these images that we had talked about, this sort of like sci-fi vintage hardware instruments, kind of hooking them up to kind of thing. It was like, okay, what can I do? What can I essentially pay for myself? And for so much indie filmmaking, that comes down to two people in a room talking to each other. It's dressed up a bit with some, I think, cool set dressing, and the location that I had that I was, already renting. The script was written around that. I had these elements in place, and I was like, okay, I got a little bit of time. What can I do to make this happen? Basically myself. I called in some favors. I had a very tiny crew, very small cast, and we just did it in a day, and that's kind of... I think for a lot of us, that's all we can afford to do, so that's why it happened that way.
Write it small, call in the favors, and make it happen. I mean, what more could you ask for? Do you know where you're heading yet after Panic Fest? Do you have anything set up already, or is it back to the Great White North, as it were?
So we are heading back to Canada soon. We have at least one more festival in October in LA that I'm planning on attending, that we have not officially, I'm not entirely sure if I can say it, but yeah, and then we have some more through the summer. There's some big genre fests that would be amazing to get into and to go, but I think we have our finish line, and that's this LA festival in September, and everything between now and then is just kind of gravy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I personally enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed watching it with the audience as well. They were, they seemed to dig it, and, it was great to meet you here at Panic Fest, and hopefully we bump into each other again on the fest circuit on the somewhere down the line.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.